Hi guys, this is Taylor, and I wanted to do something a little bit different today. In my time and place tag, which I will of course link to, I shared a little anecdote about the relatively weird way that I acquired my copy of The Great Gatsby, and a lot of you said you'd like that story, so I decided to have a little look around and try and recall some of the weirder ways that I've acquired books and share them with you. Why not? Some of them will definitely be weirder than others, and first one is not that weird, but it kind of piggybacks off of the Great Gatsby story. So to recap, I was at an estate sale in a literal mansion in my town, and in one of the main sitting rooms of the mansion, I guess, they had boxes and boxes of books that I think they had brought up from the basement maybe, red flag, and the person who had lived there before had some really cool interests and tastes. So I was really taking my time going through these boxes, and I found a copy of Stephen Hawking's A Brief History of Time, which was cool. I'd been wanting to read it. So I got up and set it aside, and then when I returned to the box that I was going through, I realized that it must have gotten kind of mixed up with a box of children's toys, because sitting right like on top of one of the books that I had just been looking at was like a big rubber spider, like way too big to actually be an actual spider. So I was like, that's kind of weird, that wasn't there before, but maybe I just didn't see it. So then I get closer to have a look at the books again, and of course realize that it's a real spider. It was just so big and nasty that I thought that it was like a prank spider or like some kind of toy or something, but it wasn't. So I like to think that I rescued this book. So next I actually want to talk about John Green. I definitely used to be a big fan. I think I started reading his books when I was 12 or 13. I watched the original Vlogbrothers Brotherhood 2.0 in 2007 when, as you can imagine, John was a lot more accessible. So much more accessible that when his son was born, my mom actually handmade him a teddy bear that I think ended up in his nursery. So shortly after that, Will Grayson came out, and I had met John before. I had been to signings, but I didn't go to that one. But my friends went, and they came back with a copy of Will Grayson that says, "Thanks for the bear." I think John and I are still Facebook friends. Life is weird. So the next one is also not incredibly weird, but it is the only thing I can think of when I look at or think about this book. So my old college had a lot of impromptu lending library spaces where basically they had books that you could take and bring back whenever, or if you decided to take a book, then you would just have to replace it on a kind of an honor system. And one of those places was in this common area in the dorms I lived in. So there was just like this living room area, and then there was this shelf full of books, and one day I was just looking through and I saw The Round Barn, which I had never heard of. It has something like 10 ratings on Goodreads. So yeah, I picked it up and I took it back to my dorm and I put it on the little shelf that I had. And then when I moved out of my dorm, I of course just took everything, put it in boxes and left, and then realized that, yeah, totally stole that book that was given out on an honor system. But I'm not really bothered by it because my tuition would have covered like 10,000 copies of that book, so next I want to talk about this copy of Herbie Jones' Superhero. So in 4th grade I had this incredible teacher who really went out of her way to do above and beyond stuff with her students. And every year the kids in her class did something called the Herbie Jones Readers Theater, which is basically a play based on the Herbie Jones books by Susie Klein. I didn't have a massive part because I wasn't super outgoing. I'm also very small, so I probably didn't have that much of a stage presence. But it turns out that my teacher was either friends or had some sort of acquaintance with Susie Klein. So at the end of the Readers Theater, we were all given copies of one of Susie Klein's books, and mine is inscribed to me, and it basically says, you know, good job. So lastly, I have my longest and probably weirdest story. I don't have any particular books to show for this because I got something like 3 bags of books from this particular place. So I got like some of my hardcover Harry Potters and a lot of my Toni Morrison and a lot of my like old beat up classics. But yeah, so I spend a lot of my time looking on Craigslist for book sales, as you do, and I found one that was just a couple towns away, and it was basically like, we have this warehouse full of books, we need to get rid of them, please. So I went out there with my mom and we drove into this kind of like desolate field area, and then we turn into this like industrial looking compound where it's just like a lot of like steel outbuildings and there's no one around, and we're both getting really, really bad vibes. And so we're looking around and we're thinking like, should we just go home? Like there's no one here, what do we do? And then on one of these like warehouse buildings, we just see a little sign that says books and a little arrow. So we're like, all right, let's do this. And we go in, and this place is staffed by two really nice guys, and they really did have like a whole warehouse of books that they really desperately wanted to sell. And so everything's cool. This is one of those places where if you really want to get a good look at everything, you probably have to be there for a couple hours. So I start looking at the books and I hear a weird sound. So being very afraid of bugs, as you have gathered, I am really good at seeing them, hearing them, locating them. If there's a spider on the ceiling or something, it's just like my eyes zero in on it. It's like a radar for bugs. So I start to hear this weird sound and I'm just like, ugh. And I look up and sure enough there is some kind of wasp flying around. So I start running. I'm gone. I can't. Wasps are like a deal breaker for me. I'm so terrified of them. So then I point out the wasp and one of the guys is like, oh yeah, by the way, just forgot, this place is infested with wasps. So at this point I'm not meaning to be a douchebag, but like really genuinely terrified of bugs, and I'm like, alright, gotta go. And one of the guys working there is like, no, don't worry, like we have this can of wasp spray, just tell me like wherever you see one and I'll get it, I'll spray it. So then at this point, if you're one of those people who doesn't believe in killing bugs, I'm sorry. So then the guys working there were really nice about it, and they were very diligently killing the wasps that I pointed out to them. And the whole time I have my eye on this cluster of dead wasps on the ceiling. They're probably like 10 or so, just all clustered together and like stuck to the ceiling. They're very clearly dead. They're all like shriveled up. But I mean, I'm not going to point that out because they're dead and they're not, you know, posing any harm to me at all. So at this point I've been looking at the books for probably around an hour. I have like 2 big bags of books that I was going to buy from this place. And then one of the guys spots the cluster of the dead ones on the ceiling and he's like, oh, let me get that for you. So I was like, okay. And he gets a little step stool and he starts to spray the bee pancake on the ceiling. At which point, of course, they all come alive. And there's not so much 10 of them as maybe 20, 25. And watching them all disperse from that one spot, 25 wasps, was the worst thing I've ever seen with my eyes. We left fairly soon after that, but I still came away with like 3 bags of books. And that poor guy still there was like, come back soon, and I was like, yeah, for sure. So those are all the weird book acquisition stories that I can think of. If you have any weird ones, either let me know in the comments or even better, make a video. I'd love to hear the weird stories that you have as a book collector. So yeah, I hope you have a great day and I will see you soon. Bye!